then. Then we got it.
I'm not gonna steal you.
Okay, welcome everybody. It's Tuesday, the 7th of February, I think, a week before Valentine's Day. And this is the Senate Democratic Caucus. I'm Allison Clarkson, I'm the majority leader, and we have a group of fabulous senators here. So we are today going to have a combination of committee chair updates and update on a particular bill that I understand progress is being made in the House as we speak.
That's true.
And so we're going to start with Senator Lyons updating us on the SHIELD bill. This is a bill that further protects our providers who are providing reproductive services and to patients who may be coming to Vermont to get those services. So, Senator Lyons, you have the floor.
Great, thank you. You have I wrote up a little handout. Doesn't originate with me. It's modified from something our legal counsel put together, so you can compare what they did with what you have. And as Allison said, H89 in the House is going to be voted out. I think Martin said tomorrow. But we'll be seeing that very soon, and that probably goes to judiciary. But this bill is really, it's an extension of the work that we did last year on, this year actually, in November on Article 22. And then there's been significant turmoil across the country and really charging and suing and litigation for providers who are really are practicing medicine for legitimate care for patients. So this bill is exactly as Senator Clarkson had said, will provide protection for patients and other healthcare providers who are providing legally protected healthcare services and activities. So overall, that's what the bill does. It is a bill about the professional boards, and that now we're adding definitions to what are legally protected healthcare services and activities. So within the bill, you'll see a new definition, an expansion of a definition for those for legally protected healthcare activities. I want to keep saying that because it does reference standard of care, appropriate standard of care that's regulated under whether it's the Board of Nursing or the Board of Medical Practice or the Board of Pharmacy. So ensuring that those folks who are carrying out their work relative to gender affirming care or to reproductive services, that those folks are protected when they're providing care for patients. So as you look at the little handout that you have, you'll see that's number one. We're trying to protect our healthcare providers. And then the definitions that are included in the bill, and there may well be definition changes from what from the bill is introduced. So, but overall includes definitions of gender affirming care, and legally protected health care, adds gender affirming care into what is legally protected health care. Also includes pregnancy, contraception, assisted reproduction, pregnancy loss management, or termination of pregnancy within the statutory definition of legally protected health care. So all of these things now will be considered professional conduct, and that is critical. Absolutely critical as healthcare providers are regulated in state. One thing that I didn't put in here that I'll mention in a bit, but are there any questions so far? So we're within the bill itself is reproductive care and also gender affirming care, which is something that we talked about previously in the Senate and in the legislature. And FYI, we are really beginning our testimony on this bill tomorrow. So we have 2 full days of testimony, Wednesday and Thursday this week. And our goal is to finish up as much testimony as needed and then do some markup on the bill probably not as early as next week, but that would be great if we could. But we will be looking at passing the bill out over the next couple of weeks. The other section, I'm on number 4 on the little list that you have, is it prohibits malpractice insurers from raising insurance costs or increasing the risks associated with when practitioners participate in any of the legally protected healthcare activities, which now include gender affirming care and reproductive services as defined. Then it also requires coverage for those services. That'll be something that we'll have a discussion about. And I've heard from our Blue Cross Blue Shield folks that they're very supportive of the bill as it's written. So that is very encouraging. Then the section of the bill, which is under number 6, are these so-called pregnancy centers. We'll be getting information about what they are, but we want to ensure that there isn't deceptive information given out to patients about what is possible for them within the state of Vermont. So that will be some important testimony for the committee. And then number 7 deals with pharmacists, and that is for the Department of Health will be putting together some guidelines for pharmacists when they dispense emergency contraception. And so there'll be some rules promulgation. This is one section of the bill that judiciary might want to just look at because there might be some civil language about civil or criminal litigation. There's also a section in the bill about abusive litigation for malpractice insurers, and that's another section or definition that judiciary may want to look at. Yep. Abusive litigation. Yep. And so I believe that that will dovetail with what's coming to us from the House. One of the balancing acts that's going on with this bill is that definitions that are in the House bill, definitions that are in the Senate bill need to be the same. We'll get those together. And then to continue, and I'll ask you got questions, but the patient protection is there's a limiting disclosure of patient information. This is an extension of HIPAA, and there are some protections offered there when out-of-state people or entities are looking for patient information when patient services have been delivered in the state of Vermont. So we'll be looking at that again. That's a critically important part of the bill. And then finally, 9 and 10 relate to our public institutions, UVM and NVU. We're asking that those institutions have plans in place for reproductive and gender affirming services for their students. And the Department of Health, again, will be helping develop guidelines and a plan to help a model plan, put that in place for our colleges, our public institutions. So that's kind of the big broad look at the bill. And as I said, we're at the stage of taking testimony. We'll be hearing from providers in the state. We're going to be hearing from the expert on adolescent medicine and other areas of gender affirming care. We're going to be hearing from OBGYN folks. We'll be hearing from the Board of Medical Practice. We'll be hearing from the Board of Pharmacy through OPR, as well as others. So to understand the implications of the bill. Did leave out one thing, but let's get questions first.
Would you just be kind enough, Senator Lyons, to clarify what the House has taken action on and what the House is, well, because they have a piece of, they have a whole section of this effort that is coming to us, that they are.
So they're looking at the judiciary side, sort of the legal issues associated with lawsuits and related to all of this information. And Martin Lalonde, I spoke with the chair of judiciary today, and he said, you really have the difficult job. And I said, no, you have the difficult job. So apparently they finished the bill. I can't tell you any more than that.
That's a great division of labor. They-
And I will let Senator Sears weigh in on the judiciary bill.
Well, I don't know.
When it
All I
gets
know
here.
is they're voting on it.
Yeah.
Right, that's what I've heard.
In House Judiciary. House Judiciary hasn't voted on it yet.
Okay, any questions for Jenny? Jen?
Number 6, the only thing I've heard so far, and that's for people that have not a supportive of the bill, is their concern or their disagreement that why are we singling out any particular entity around who's subject to unfair and deceptive activities. So I just bring that.
Okay.
In other words, shouldn't we have the same kind of standard on unfair and deceptive activities and not necessarily?
Oh, and not targeting one specific, and that is a question that's been brought to us, and it's a good question, and it's something that we will look at.
That's I'm just, in terms of what 6 does, so the question is, why are we singling out one entity over, whatever, right? That's all.
Well, and there have been concerns brought about specific types of organizations that are providing unfair and deceptive information. So the question is, maybe it's unfair and deceptive spreads across the whole healthcare.
Everybody has a potential.
Tanya?
Does this provide protection for OPR regulated mental health professionals?
If they're dealing with these services, yes.
It just wasn't laid out in sort of the extent naming.
No, it's specific boards under the Office of Professional Regulation, and it's clarification that we'll have to ensure is. And then there's the one question that was, there were 2 questions that were brought up last week that probably are important. And one is on conscience protection laws, and that we have federal laws in place that have been there since Roe v. Wade in the early 70s. And we'll be looking at what the state offers and what the conscience protection, meaning if you are a practitioner and you don't wish to engage in a specific type of activity or service because it's against your belief, then there's some protection for you if you don't have to. So federal laws are very clear. When we took testimony on Prop 5 a few years ago, we did hear from various hospitals and clinics that they also have conscience protection policies in place. The other piece that I didn't mention and that clarity on is what happens when you have a content compact in place, and that
Like a nursing compact,
a physical
Provider compact.
compact, a nursing compact. We have both of those in the state. And if they're practicing in our state, again, with someone from out of state, if they're practicing in another state, I've been reassured, and we'll hear from the director out on the medical compact, and also from the nursing compact, that that those compacts will protect our providers. So that information will be testimony that we hear in committee. I did follow up on it last week because it was an issue, big issue. And that, I mean, that's the bill. There's a lot for us to dig into in that testimony. I'm looking forward to it. The goal, as I said, is to improve the definition that we have for protected healthcare activities, standard of care, and then to ensure that our practitioners are protected from professional misconduct activities and regulations.
Terrific, thank
Can I
you.
add one little thing?
Yeah.
Are there any other questions? Okay, quickly, I sent you all an email. I sent to the whole Senate yesterday on what's known as Medicaid redetermination. Did you get that? Make sure you look at it, and if you have questions, I'm happy to answer. But there's the beginning this spring, probably in March, the administration is looking at who is now going to be eligible for Medicaid. And everyone's been eligible for Medicaid during COVID. So now there's a webpage, the AHS website, and you can look at that. Those frequently asked questions to help respond to your constituents about whether or not they are or will be eligible for Medicaid. I just hope so.
Right, thank you. And it's not just age and income. The criteria, are not just age and income.
Eligibility determination through income primarily, but then other.
Great. So thank you, Ginny. That's terrific. I think it's a big piece of the continuing work we're doing on reproductive liberty and protecting people who come to us and the people who are here practicing. And people who are making those choices. So thank you very much for that work. I think we'll start A. So Senator Starr, you're up. Do you have an update for us on what is immediately what we might be voting out of ag this week, or what are you in the middle of?
I
And
don't,
as loud as possible because the microphone is right
I
there.
don't think we'll be ready to vote anything out this week. The requests from the agency will be coming within the next week or so. The other bills that we do have, right to farm, and those things we're gonna need to continue to work on.
Right, and universal meals is in ed right now or with you?
Brian is supposed to see him. He's supposed to be getting something ready for that, and we're in a position to support what the ed committee does in regards to.
Right. Perfect. Thank you. Senator Kitchell, the Budget Adjustment Act is in your committee.
Yes, it passed the House.
Jane, if you could stand up just because the mic is there, that would be great.
Good. Who's listening?
Actually, I can't tell you how many watch this on YouTube, but actually a surprising number. All the lobbyists that aren't in the room now are watching,
I see.
Well,
or anybody
The
else.
House passed the Budget Adjustment Act. A number of areas of fairly significant appropriations we've determined need a bit more attention. And perhaps the Budget Adjustment Act is not the right vehicle, but something that gives committees more time to really dig in and consider. As I said, when you start making decisions around setting aside or appropriating in the budget adjustment, it precludes your ability to really look at all your funding proposals in a more comprehensive way. So the budget adjustment normally is truing up and adjusting for caseloads and so forth. So there are a number of things in there that we'll be working with other committees and probably will have some further discussions. So we're going to start taking the testimony this week. Our goal is to wrap it up and probably have it out next week. As I say, it's supposed to be just a technical truing up. There are some things in it. Then we'll move on to the big bill. Actually, we've been starting to take testimony on the technical budget right now. So that's where we are. And next week on Tuesday, I can probably read the caucus in greater detail.
Right. Thank you. Yes, we're looking forward to a fuller BAA discussion.
Right on the edge of your chair.
Anybody have questions for Senator? Okay, right. Keisha is, I know, busy, so she'll be here in a minute. Education, Ryan, Senator Campion.
Thanks. Sorry I was late.
Okay. You arrived in perfect time.
Just quickly, this week we're going to look at the agenda to take up a little bit more of the governor's school safety bill. We are going to continue our conversation on S34, a bill that Senator Chittenden put in kindergarten enrollment age. Let's see, other big highlights. We're going to review Act 28, literacy. This is the bill that senators may recall we passed 2 years ago in response to literacy needs, and see what holes we might fill in. Those are the highlights. I think the other thing is we are going to spend some time on Friday talking about high school athletics. I know people have seen in the news a lot of issues around high school athletics and what's happening during those games. So we're going to jump into that as well. Yeah. Yeah. So we're not continuing. We don't have any testimony this week, but I did ask. We have heard incredibly compelling testimony around how to continue. Nobody is coming in to say stop it. The question is how do we continue it? With the question is funding. So, but yeah.
Terrific. So, Senator Cummings, Finance.
Yes.
I don't think you need me to stand. I usually can be well heard. Finance continues to try and figure out how we're going to pay for all of these good ideas. We're going to get a briefing on all the employer-based taxes. We've talked about payroll taxes, but everything else that's in that mix, we'll probably vote out the separated insurance markets, the individual and small group markets, because the federal government has continued their subsidies and this works for everyone. So we will, we've already taken the testimony. We just got the bill. I assume we'll vote it out in about 10 minutes this week. Get it on the floor. It's pretty simple. We are looking into the impact of the just historical increase in housing values, what it may do to the actual tax liabilities of people who are covered by paying on their income for property tax. And last year your house was worth $200,000 and this year it's worth $500,000. And what is the exposure there? And also, what are we going to do? We usually have 3 or 4 towns under CLA requirement to reappraise. This year there's 34 and they can't get the appraisers. They aren't there. I know the House is looking on a different appraisal system, but again, if you get a CLA impact, that could have a major effect on your tax rate. So trying to figure that out. We're going to try and figure out how to pay for school bills along with childcare and paid family leave. So we have a heavy program.
So stay tuned. Thanks. I saw, yes.
I just have a question, Senator Clarkson.
Yeah.
Senator Cummings, if I know of a town that's considering doing the reappraisal on their own, should I let them know to stand by, stand down?
At this point, I would tell them to stand down if they've got somebody that's there. I know the city of Montpelier just did one. It's like stay tuned, tell them to check with property valuation. There may be something in the works in the other body, but just tell them to check. But
Okay.
given the shortage of appraisers, I don't think I'd cancel one.
Yeah, they were gonna do it on their own, actually. Using their own.
Great. Thank you. Any other questions for Andy? Okay. Keisha, Senator Ron Hinsdale, would you be kind enough to just give us an update on all that we're doing in Senate Economic Development, Housing, and General Affairs?
I don't know that anything has changed. We're still doing housing. And I think if I didn't mention it last caucus, we have a set housing hearing on February 16th around 5 p.m. with House General and Housing. And so that's probably where we're going to hear the remainder of our outside voices. We really have to start marking up the bill. I think beyond that, I would take questions. We're still working through a lot of changes. We've heard from a lot of voices And I'm starting to feel very proud of what we're doing, and we have a great committee to do it. So I think probably now maybe you're starting to hear from folks, or I can go into more detail about the different components of the bill.
Right, and I would hope that maybe next week, during caucus, it's one of our issues that we could go into depth. It would be great for us to, because I think more will have gelled by then.
Yeah.
So we could do, I think we're gonna do BAA and housing as two of the featured issues, policy areas that we want to chat about.
Yeah, so if there are no questions, I'll get a PowerPoint ready for that or something. So, yeah.
Senator Hardy, Senate Gov Ops, you're up next.
Okay, Senate Gov Ops, we are working on emergency communications, also known as dispatch, which sounds really boring, but it is really crucial and is not in the best of states in our state right now. So we've taken this on as a committee project. So we're hearing from lots of local, regional experts on dispatch in their little corner of the state. If you would like us to hear from your particular dispatch expert in your district, let me know, and I'm happy to have them in. We've got a lot of them coming in, so we might already have you covered. But if you don't think we do, let me know, and we'll have them in. We are trying to figure out a way to solve the sort of inequities and problems of emergency dispatch throughout the state. And we hope to have a bill out for crossover, and it's been a really interesting thing that I've never thought I would work on, but I've gotten to know a lot of firefighters and policemen. The other thing we're working on this week is a bill about ranked choice voting. We're taking some testimony on both of these issues today and Thursday and Friday. On Friday, there will be two sort of national experts who had ranked choice voting in their states or communities, and they're coming in to talk with a lot of people, one Republican, one Democrat. So if you'd like to meet with them, one of them is a former speaker in Colorado. Let me know if you want to hear more about how it's worked on the ground in other parts of the country. So we're looking at that among other things, but those are the two big topics this week.
Yeah, Jane.
Just to add, I want to thank Senator Hardy for picking this up. We did have money in the budget for dispatch and really to think about how we would move forward, because public safety is really taking the position that they only want to do dispatch for the state police. And so the report that came back really said, well, the legislature needs to debate. So when we read that, we said, we need to debate, because it's been kind of put back to us to make those policy decisions. And so when we looked at the report, and it was getting into governance and many of the areas that still needed to be debated, it fell into government operations territory. And so I just wanted to make the nexus between what we did last year, the funding that's still out there, and what we were attempting to solve, and how it just sort of came back circular. And hopefully this is the year that we can make those decisions and move forward. The hard part is the towns that are paying don't feel it's fair they're paying, and other towns are not paying. And the towns that are not paying don't really want to pay. And so everybody's going to be unhappy probably. And so good luck, Ruth.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, thank you. It's actually super fascinating. It's a total GovOps issue. One of the things that people start their testimony with is this an essential government service? And I look around the table and the entire committee is like, yes.
Yeah.
Because this is, if you call 911, if you have an emergency, the 911 people work with the dispatchers to get an ambulance or a firefighter or a police response to your emergency. And it's incredibly complicated, both logistically and technically. And it's especially complicated in Vermont because we have all of these little agencies that respond to emergencies. Senator Kitchell's absolutely right. It's complicated and really important that we solve it this session. So I'm determined to do it. And so is our committee. So thank you.
You're here. Senator Lyons, do you have anything else to add, or are you okay with health and welfare?
No, I think I should add that we are also very deeply embedded and working on childcare, the childcare bill, as well as a few other bills that we have gone through, but our testimony will begin on the childcare bill on Friday and then continue into next week. So we're looking forward to completing work on that.
Right, and we will hope to have one of our caucuses devoted to that also. So next is institution, Senator Harrison.
Thank you. So we continue to review the governor's proposed capital budget. Last week, we heard from folks who are involved in historic preservation, the grants for historic preservation and recreation. And the Arts Council actually had a really nice presentation. And one thing that they did that the others haven't done or haven't seen is they measured the impact of their grant. So they actually went and asked their grantees where they spent their money. It's like a multiplier, but it's a real multiplier instead of an assumed multiplier. So that was really helpful. It was about 4 times what the grant was value that was spent in Vermont by Vermont companies. So that was cool. This week we're going to hear again from the Capital Debt Affordability Advisory Committee. And then we're going to hear from corrections folks and from the Vermont State Colleges. So it's going to be an interesting one. Any questions? Okay, thank you.
Great, terrific, thank you. Senator Sears, Judiciary.
I just lost it. So I had it right here. Well, anyway.
You want me to ask Senator Brady to go first?
No, we have 22 bills in committee already. We've acted on 7. We're working on 7 of them. And expect S3 and act related to prohibiting paramilitary training camps will come out fairly shortly. In the next 2 weeks, S4 and act relating to reducing crimes of violence, hopefully in the next 2 weeks. S6 and act relating to custodial interrogation of juveniles, will hopefully be coming out in the next 2 weeks. We also have S14 and act relating to justice reinvestment reporting requirements that should be coming out in the next 2 weeks. And S36 and act relating to 36 is act to arrest without a warrant for assaults and threats against healthcare workers and disorderly conduct. Be viewed by the Health and Welfare Committee after we take action on it. There are a few other bills that we'll be taking up. He has really been busy doing a good job. And I think there are 2 bills that we probably aren't going to pass that we've taken up. One is kind of sad because it's an act related to the Defender General and providing services to people who are accused of a crime but are not going to be incarcerated. And the problem there is, even if we have the resources to cover the Defender General costs, we don't have the lawyers. So another area where there's a shortage. Many of you are thinking of going to the Vermont Law School.
We want to encourage people.
And the other is an act relating to presumptive probation, which was a good idea, but may cause more harm than good if we pass it. So with that, that's our review.
Great, thank you. Senator Brady, there you are, and then we will end with Senator Mazza.
This is a good spot.
That's a great spot.
So we are still working on S5, Affordable Heat Act. We're picking up a lot of testimony, digging into many, many details. You know, the challenging position we're in is that we have a legal obligation to make a best faith effort at meeting our climate reduction goals. The only question then is, how do we do it? And how do we do it in the most affordable way? especially with sensitivity to low and moderate income Vermonters. So we are taking a lot of testimony, trying to map that out, look at all the resources. This bill lives in a whole ecosystem of other energy bills and programs like LIHEAP, low and weatherization, and the Efficiency Vermont programs. We're trying to make sure that it's integrated with those, so we get the most value by bringing things together, sort of a whole is greater than the sum of the parts it's made of. And we should have a bill out by the end of next week. I would say that if anyone here has concerns about the bills, questions about the bill, it'd be great if you would let me or any of the hardworking members of Senate Resources Managers know ASAP, because then we can both have that conversation with you, as well as scheduling any witnesses that you might be thinking of that we haven't yet thought of. We have had several dozen people, and I've lost count, but we're game for more. So that's what we're up to.
And we will be getting out some frequently asked questions and some sort of distilled summary information for you in the next, tonight. I'll send that out to all of you. So that will hopefully be helpful. Any questions for Senator Bray? So we're going to go to Senator Mazza, and then we're going to address bills that people may still need sponsors for. Senator Mazza.
We're continuing to work on the Department of Motor Vehicles miscellaneous bill every year. They have a miscellaneous bill, all the different structures, inspection stickers, and all that. We're doing that. We continue to work on the transportation bill, which is one of the biggest bills I've seen in many years, the biggest last year. So we have a tremendous amount of bridges, paving projects all over the state. We're spending a lot of time on that. As far as bills, I think we got our first bill this morning, so I don't have any report on bills. We continue to work on people's studies. Thank you.
Right, thanks. Just to go to Senator Kitchell's question, we have currently 4 people watching this who are not in. We have happily had a lobbyist run earlier, and Delia says that many more people access this later, so she could give us a count by next week how many people come and watch to hear what we're talking about. Anybody have a bill they want to discuss that they still need co-sponsors on? Senator Bray.
Yeah, talked about it back in November caucus, the universal primary care bill. Getting ready to turn that in. Anyone who's interested in being a sponsor, if you can let me know before you leave the room, I'll make sure to connect with you sometime today and get your signature. Thank you.
Terrific. Senator McCormick.
I would be more prepared if I hadn't had a frozen pipe over the weekend. I have a bill I've been looking for co-sponsors to establish best use standards for road salts. And this is just not to limit its use at this point, that a few years down the road, maybe, or maybe not. But it's just to have develop a state policy on road salt, which does get into groundwater. And of course, is necessary for the preservation of life. So it's not something you're not just going to want to ban it. You want to know how to use it so that it doesn't mess up the water necessarily.
So just an update from Senator Kitchell. 44 people watched this last week. So it's surprising. More people than you think. Anybody else? Senator Ron Hinsdale.
The bill is in my committee room next door, but as we move away from housing one day, we're going to start to look at employment issues and workplace issues. And I put a lot of issues into a bill that others have signed on to in the past, so I didn't want to lose track of that. Things like the do not darken my doorway if you can't work somewhere again, if you negotiated a settlement to leave, because we have just a few large employers. It has racial equal pay. It has redefining what pervasive harassment looks like. And it has a little bit on non-compete agreements, which has been in the news a lot lately for lower wage workers and things like that. I think it will, I guess, become the vehicle for things like Senator Hardy's Crown Act, which we've also heard about in the news, people being disallowed from athletic teams because their hair isn't done a certain way. So if you have an employment protection workplace issue you want to raise, it might get folded into this bill, and if some of those bills were ones you introduced in the past, you might want to sign on.
Great. Anybody else have additional bills they want to chat about? Great. Well, thank you. I think then we're done. And I thank you all for your hard work. We are so grateful. Thank you. I know Tom knows that. Tom, thank you. I know you know how to do this.